All right, friends. Great morning once again. So, without any delay, let us all go into meditation for some time and then we'll be hearing about who this master Helena Blavatsky is. So, prepare yourself, comfort yourself wherever you're sitting, may it be on a floor, chair, or a sofa. Just be easy with your body. Sukhasthirasanam. Let us all take Sukhasthirasanam, the posture where we can sit for a longer time comfortably. So let us all take that posture. Let us not trouble our body. Simply cross your hands, fingers into fingers, cross your legs, close your eyes, and just become aware of your breath. Aware of your natural, normal breath. Our breath is always guiding us. Our breath is always reminding us to be in and out. We need no effort to be with the breath, to feel the breath. So just be with your breath, friends. Having the full moon energies, the group energies, we can gain more, we can experience more. So let us not waste this opportunity. Let us not give power to our mind right now. Let us just become aware of the breath. And through the support of the breath, let us go deep and deep into our own self. Just the natural breath. back your awareness to your physical body and to your surroundings. Let us be grateful to each and every person that we have met in our lives, have taught us many lessons. Let us be grateful to each and every situation that we crossed in our life, for they too are the great teachers. Let us be grateful. The entire universe and all its beings for teaching all the ways of nature. Let us be grateful to Mother Earth for teaching us compassion, to be grounded, to be centered. Let us all be grateful to our own self for committing some time for our own self. Let us be grateful to each and every member in this group for being a part in sharing their love and light to each one of us. Now, friends, whenever you're ready, you may place your both hands over your eyes and you may remove your hands and slowly open your eyes. Friends, today part of Gurus of India series, we're reading about one more great master. Her name is Helena Blavatsky. Helena Petrovna Blavatsky, born in Ekaterinslav, Ukraine, was the principal founder of the Theosophical Society, established in the first final decade of 19th century. She largely was responsible for introducing Eastern religious philosophy to the Western world. Though many associate her primarily with psychic powers and psychic phenomena, the spiritual ideas expressed in her voluminous writings have been a source of inspiration to philosophers, scientists, writers, artists, and truth seekers all over the world. And now let us go more in detail about Helena Blavatsky. Helena Petrovna von Hahn was born in Ekaterinoslav, Ukraine on 12th August 1831. Her father, Peter von Hahn, was an army captain and a descendant of German nobility. Her mother was the celebrated novelist Helena Andreevna Hahn, who descended from one of the oldest families of the Russian nobility. Yet, their daughter Helena would not follow any of the usual pursuits associated with her aristocratic background, as all her sympathies and attractions went out towards people of the lower class. As her father was ordered from one garrison town to another, often moving his family with him, Helena came in contact with many different people and cultures. There were long periods when she had free access to the enormous library of her maternal grandparents. Princess Helena Dolgorukova and Governor Andrei. This included hundreds of books on philosophy and esoteric science. Helena Petrovna was only 11 years old when her mother died, after which she and her younger sister and brother were raised by their grandmother in the governor's mansion in Saratov. It was here that Helena immersed herself in a metaphysical world that surpassed anything she had read. There was also times when she sensed a presence that would guide her and keep her safe from harm. Later she would recognize this presence as her master, and her connection with him became a dominant influence on her inner life. At the age of 16, Helena began living what she called a double existence, mysterious, incomprehensible. Outwardly, she was an impetuous, willful, rebellious, and even mischievous, but inwardly, she was preoccupied with the mysteries of being. Such a distinctly dual nature involved her in some highly distressful situations. Her first marriage major crisis came at the age of 17 when acting on a dare induced the vice governor of Erivan to propose to her. Nikifor Blavatsky was more than twice her age, and although she was obliged to go through with the marriage, she was determined never to let it be consummated. After 3 months of violent quarrels and frustrated attempts to leave him, she finally succeeded in escaping to her grandmother. Her family then made an arrangement with her father that she should be sent to join him at Odessa. But Helena longed to be free to explore the world in search of the unknown. Purposely missing the steamer of Odessa, she soon managed to leave the Russia and set off on her own, traveling now as Madame Blavatsky with money sent to her by her father. She had the freedom to seek out those who could teach her more about the ancient wisdom. When years go, I first traveled over the East. We came into contact with certain men endowed with such mysterious powers and such profound knowledge that we may truly designate them as the sages of the Orient. During my Eastern travels, I have lived at different periods in Little Tibet as in Great Tibet, and these combined periods form more than 7 years. I have stopped in Lamaistic convents. I have visited Sigadze, the Lumpo territory and its neighborhood, and I have been further in, and in such places of Tibet as have never been visited by any other European. Much of the teaching found in my writings come from these sages of the Orient, our Eastern masters. Many a passage in my work has been written by me under their dictation. In saying this, no supernatural claim is urged, for no miracle is performed by such a dictation. She met with occultists in Athens and Cairo, and lived with dervishes, druses, Bedouins, and Sufis. For the next 2 years, she traveled in the Middle East and Europe, searching for someone with whom she felt a special spiritual connection, a teacher who could bring about in her the union of the soul and the spirit. Finally, in England, in the year 1851, she wrote in her sketchbook, I met M, the master of my dreams. She would later reveal that this was the Indian master who had watched over her since her childhood, and he required her cooperation in a work which she was about to undertake. He then told her how the Theosophical Society was to be formed and wished her to be the founder. When Helena Blavatsky resumed her travels, she appeared to be driven to gain first hand knowledge of the world's spiritual traditions and philosophies. During the next 7 years, she journeyed through North and South America, India, and Tibet. In the West, she studied Native American wisdom, voodoo, and ancient American civilizations. Sailing to India, she traveled there extensively for nearly 2 years. During this time, she tried to enter Tibet through Nepal but was not allowed to cross the border. Returning to India in the year 1856, she succeeded in entering Tibet through Kashmir in the company of a Tatar shaman. Some of her adventures during this period she described in the book Isis Unveiled and later in a series of Russian articles which were eventually translated into English and published as From the Caves and Jungles of Hindustan. Madame Blavatsky's main object in entering Tibet was to join her master at his retreat in Chilhunpo, much farther to the east. She was unable to do this before she had to return to India. Then, shortly before the Sepoy Mutiny in the year 1857, her master directed her to leave the country. When Madame Blavatsky returned to Russia in the year 1858, she aroused much amazement. Wherever she went, there were audible and visible manifestations. Staying with relatives and friends in various parts of the country, she assured them that she was not a medium, but only a mediator between mortals and beings we knew nothing about. Less than a year after she returned to Russia, she fell gravely ill and remained in a death like trance for several days. 4 years later, she contracted another illness, even more serious than before. On both occasions, she experienced a sudden and mysterious cure. The second illness coincided with a remarkable change in her development, but afterwards, she freed herself from the spontaneous manifestations of elementals. In the year 1865, Madame Blavatsky felt the need to continue her travels. Again, she journeyed through the Middle East and the Balkans, this time on her way to war torn Italy. There, in the year 1867, she was wounded at the Battle of Mentana, and after recovering from her wounds, she was directed by her master to proceed to India. This time, she succeeded in reaching her master Moria's retreat in Chilhunpo, a Tibetan center of monasteries and colleges. Here she met her master's colleague, the Mahatma Kuthumi, who also became her teacher. Madame Blavatsky studied with them for almost 3 years, learning to read and translate the most sacred Tibetan and Senzar texts into English. Among these were the Book of the Golden Percepts, from which she later translated fragments as The Voice of the Silence and the Book of Xian, the stanzas that form the basis for her masterwork, The Secret Doctrine. This period of training was Madame Blavatsky's final preparation for her public work. When she left Tibet in the year 1870, she was looking for the opportunity to introduce the ancient wisdom to the West. This came after she had survived a devastating shipwreck on her way to Egypt. She settled in Cairo and began to organize a society spirit which would investigate mediumistic phenomena and eventually bring attention to true occultism. The following year was a time of waiting, spent mostly with a family in Russia and briefly with a cousin in Paris. But soon after Madame Blavatsky's arrival in Paris, she was directed by her teacher to go to America. A first opportunity came the year after her arrival in New York, when she read a series of newspaper articles by Colonel Henry S. Olcott, a New York attorney reporting on the manifestations that were taking place at the home of the Eddy brothers in Chittenden, Vermont. I was sent to America in the year 1873 by these masters to prove the spiritualistic phenomena and their reality, and to show the fallacy of the spiritualistic theories of spirits. I did not want people at large to know that I could produce the same thing at will. I had received orders to the contrary. I found Colonel Henry S. Olcott investigating the Eddy mediums at Chittenden, Vermont, and was ordered to let him know that spiritualistic phenomena without the philosophy of occultism were dangerous and misleading. Meeting Olcott at the Eddy homestead, Madame Blavatsky tried to show him that these apparitions were not the true spirits of the dead, but only materializations of lower astral entities. I told Colonel Occult that I had known adepts not only in India and beyond Ladakh, but in Egypt and Syria. Adepts are everywhere. Adepts, silent, secret, retiring, and who never divulge themselves entirely to anyone unless one did as I did. There are several esoteric schools, the seat of which is beyond the Himalayas and whose ramifications may be found in China, Japan, India, Tibet, and even in Syria, and also in South America. There is beyond the Himalayas a nucleus of these adepts of various nationalities. The Tashi or Panchen Lama of Tibet, a high initiate, knows these adepts, and they act together. Some of these adepts are with him and yet remain unknown in their true character to the average Lama. My master Moria and the master Kutumi had several others known personally are there, and they are all in communication with adepts in Egypt and Syria, and even in Europe. I was the first in the United States to bring the existence of our masters into publicity and expose the names of two members of this brotherhood, hitherto unknown in Europe and America, yet sacred and revered throughout the East, especially in India. We call them masters because they are our teachers, and because from them we have we have derived all the theosophical truths. They are all living men, born as we are born, and die like every other mortal. They are men of great learning and still greater holiness of life. Anyway, my master sent me to the United States to see what could be done to stop necromancy and the unconscious black magic exercised by the spiritualists. Then my master brought orders to form the Theosophical Society, which was founded in the year 1875 at the New York by Colonel Uckle and myself, held by W.Q. Judge and several others. Decision to form Theosophical Society. By this time, a group of serious students were holding discussions in Madame Blavatsky's apartment, and it was decided to form a society that would study the esoteric philosophies of ancient times and share the fruit of this research with the public. Madame Blavatsky's official title in the society was Corresponding Secretary. Leaving the administrative work to Olcott and others, she devoted her energies principally to writing. Her letters and articles were now dealing with occultism and the esoteric sciences, and much of what she wrote was inspired by her teachers. It was also during this period that she was engaged in writing her first book, Isis Unveiled. This would become a monumental work on ancient and modern science and theology, and it consumed most of her time for the next 2 years. When it was published in the year 1877, it was an immediate success, far surpassing anyone's expectations. After the Theosophical Society had been established in the US, it was decided to move the headquarters of the Theosophical Society to India. Arriving in Bombay in the year 1879, Madame Blavatsky and Colonel Olcott established their headquarters in the India Quarter. When Europeans were seldom seen from the very beginning, it was apparent that Madame Blavatsky regarded Hindus, Buddhists, Muslims, and Parsis alike with fraternal affection. Her reverence for these religious traditions was made abundantly clear in her letters and articles, which were published in various Indian journals. After our arrival at Bombay, a society began to grow. At this point, the society's three chief objects were declared, namely, the first thing is to form the nucleus of a universal brotherhood of humanity without distinction of race, creed, sex, caste, or color. Second is to promote the study of Aryan and other Eastern literatures, religions, philosophies, and sciences. The third is to investigate unexplained laws of nature and the psychic powers of man. 5 months after their arrival in Bombay, the Theosophical Society began publishing its own journal, The Theosophist, with Madame Blavatsky as editor. She described it as a repository for all that relates to occultism, as well as an organ through which the native scholars of the East could communicate their learning to the Western world, not as a propaganda for any particular religion, but as the paper representing the whole Theosophical Society or Universal Brotherhood. To promulgate these philosophical and ethical teachings, she and Olcott continued to travel extensively throughout India and Ceylon. Hundreds of public meetings and discussions were held. Unprecedented gatherings of Asians and Europeans of different religious backgrounds. And in the space of just a few years, there were dozens of new Theosophical Society lodges. However, the constant strain of traveling and working in a tropical climate gradually undermined her health. It began to deteriorate toward the end of the next year while she was living at the permanent Theosophical Society headquarters and the spiritual center of the society, which was founded at Adyar in Madras in the year 1882. Her doctors warned her that she would die unless she went to recuperate in a cooler climate. So, in early 1884, arrangements were made for Olcott to accompany her to France. Madame Blavatsky returned to Madras at the end of the year 1884, determined to defend her teachers and theosophy. The secret doctrine. Madame Blavatsky soon became so seriously ill that her doctors gave her up. Once again, she was saved from death by her master, but she remained in such precarious health that she resigned as corresponding secretary and was persuaded to leave India for Europe to complete her book, The Secret Doctrine, and if possible, to regain her health. End of the year 1885, she received a copy of the SPR's proceedings, in which Hodgson accused her of being a Russian spy and an impostor who invented the Mahatmas and forged their letters. Unable to take legal action to disprove these charges, she became all the more determined to make the secret doctrine a masterwork that would vindicate herself and her teachers. Since the hundreds of quotations in the secret doctrine could be checked more easily in the British Museum, and there were members who could help in the preparation of the book, Madame Blavatsky agreed to come to London in the year 1887. She became active in public theosophical work, mobilizing the members of the newly formed Blavatsky Lodge to work among the poor and the homeless. In September, she confounded a new magazine called Lucifer to bring light to the hidden things of darkness, and she formed an esoteric section to help the future growth of the Theosophical Society as a whole in the true direction by promoting brotherly union, at least among the few. This deep felt concern of Madame Blavatsky's for the future of the Theosophical Society, working for the brotherhood or humanity, was the principal reason for writing the secret doctrine. When it was published in the year 1888, she dedicated it all to true theosophists in every country and every race, for they called it forth. Its purpose was to present the ancient truths which form the basis of all religions, science, and philosophy, and to show how all of life is formed by one divine principle. The Secret Doctrine remains the most comprehensive source book of its kind, stimulating both the intellect and the intuition with its vision of spiritual unity. The last 2.5 years of her life, Madame Blavatsky concentrated on helping theosophists reorient themselves towards exertion in the common cause, that of helping mankind. She emphasized this in hundreds of letters and articles, and in two additional books. In The Key to Theosophy, she corrected misconceptions about theosophy and the society, explaining how both were founded on the essential brotherhood of mankind. In the book, The Voice of the Silence, she provided the ethical precepts that disciples have followed since ancient times to discover the path of renunciation for the sake of others, of suffering fellow men. As her essential message touched more and more members in the West, she was persuaded to establish a European section with herself as a president. This quickly became, like the American section, an active and influential center of theosophical work. In August 1890, she formed the inner circle of 12 disciples. Countess Constance Wachmister, Mr. Isabel Cooper, Miss Emily, Miss Laura, Mrs. Annie Besant, Mrs. Alice, Dr. Archibald Herbert, Claude Wright, G.R.S. Mead, E.T. Sturdy, and Walter Old. 8th May 1891. Suffering from Bright's disease and complication from influenza, Blavatsky died in her home at 19 Avenue Road, St. John's Wood, London, on 8th May 1891. Her last words with regard to her work were, "Keep the link unbroken. Keep the link unbroken. Do not let my last incarnation be a failure. Do not let my last incarnation be a failure." Her body was cremated at Woking on 11th May 1891. One third of her ashes were sent to Europe, one third with William Kwan, judge to United States, and one third to India, where her ashes were scattered in the Ganges River. Every year, 8th May celebrated by Theosophists, and it is called White Lotus Day. So yes, friends, this is about Madame Blavatsky, and wonderful to know about her, how she had worked a lot for the mankind, and I hear Patriji speaking about this book, Secret Doctrine, many a times. It's like it has everything in it, everything. So very, very, very good, um, very good reading, friends, and very good messages, and great to know about this master. So thank you so much for being here. And if there is anybody who wants to share anything, you can just go ahead and unmute yourself. And how a woman can travel all over east, west, learning and giving it back to the humankind is really amazing. Uh, yes, Madhvi, please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Madhu. It was a wonderful, wonderful session. I never heard about this woman, Helen Blavatsky, but she's very great. The moment you are reading about that, like as if I am traveling with her and understand what she wants to convey us and what she want to keep us, keep her alive through us. Yeah, it's very beautiful. But you have mentioned 3 books, I think, while reading it.
Mm-hmm.
That was one was the book. It is called The Secret of
Doctrine, the secret
Doctrine.
doctrine. Yeah.
The Secret Doctrine. Yeah, that
Mm-hmm.
is one book. And there is another book also. He said The Silence
Isis
of,
Unveiled.
what was that?
It's Isis Unveiled. It's a
I
first book.
see as unveiled. Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's a
Thank you.
wonderful meditation as well. Great.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, Ram, please go ahead.
Thanks a lot, Madhu. Namaste, Masters. It was beautiful to start the week listening to one more wonderful master, her journey. And this is what exactly that touched me. That back in 1831, that she had pursued her inner work in such a grand way that this whole world now looks at her and learns greater things. And we are now in the year 2022 with all the possible comforts, information, ease of connecting to ourselves. And thanks to these wonderful masters. Imagine the hardships that they might have underwent, even to travel from one place to another place at those times, compared to what we have now in order to connect, learn, seek. So we are in such a wonderful time, and everything is readily available to us. That's something I'm very grateful, um, that we do not need to undergo all those physical hardships in order to connect to the spiritual wisdom. So wonderful, wonderful to listen about this Master Theosophical Society, and the books of Theosophical Society are always one of the top referred books in the field of spirituality. And Blavatsky being the founding members, then even we hear about Jiddu Krishnamurti, who was closely associated for some years in his life to Theosophical Society. So great masters came through Theosophical Society literature. There are Theosophical societies everywhere in the world. If we look around, we find them everywhere. Even in Heidelberg, I understood there is a Theosophical Society and their gatherings. So we need to find, we need to learn, we need to hear, we need to grow. So this is what is the message. So even if we put 1% of the effort of these masters, I think we learn a lot. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Ram. So yes, as Ram said in the end, what our last words were: keep the link unbroken. Do not let my last incarnation be a failure. It's a straight message that she's giving the entire humanity. Is like It's not about her incarnation, it's about us not wasting the time. We should not waste our time, or we should not delay in progressing. So let us not stop ourselves in progressing, friends. So let us learn everything, and let us all grow. So thank you so much. Anyone else wants to share anything? Thank you so much, Sangeeta ji, who had written in YouTube. It's wonderful to know that you have not heard about Madame Blavatsky. So possible, please go through this book, The Secret Doctrine. It's really it's encyclopedia of spirituality and how to lead the life. So thank you so much. Yes. All right, friends. Then we will all see each other again at 10:30 Germany time, 10:30 a.m. Germany time, for the book reading of The Untold Story of Sita. And for the ones who are in YouTube, we won't be reading that book. We are not going live for the book reading session. If you are interested, please write to us to an email ID to get the Zoom ID, so that you can join that session. It's really a wonderful to know also about Sita's journey. So yes, friends. Till then, have a lovely, lovely day and a lovely night for the ones who have connected from US. Namaste to all.